The neon lights of Las Vegas burned brightly in the desert sky on the evening of August 12, 1972. The International Hotel was set to host another sold-out Elvis Presley performance, but behind the glitz and glamour, an unexpected and dangerous situation was unfolding, one that would forever alter the lives of two men. It was a moment of quiet tension in the hotel's security office. Marcus Williams, a seasoned security guard who had spent over 2 decades in the industry, was preparing for his nightly routine. As a 45-year-old man with a deep understanding of the hospitality business, he knew how to navigate the chaos of Las Vegas, especially when it came to the safety of Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. However, tonight, things would take a darker turn. Marcus had always been more than just a guard. He wasn't like the others who viewed their job as just a paycheck. He truly cared about Elvis's safety. He had grown up in the tough streets of North Las Vegas, understanding hardship, resilience, and the importance of respect for all people, no matter their status. Elvis's kindness and willingness to acknowledge everyone around him, especially the security staff, had left a lasting impression on Marcus. In a world where the rich and famous often looked past those who worked behind the scenes, Elvis's simple gestures had spoken volumes to Marcus. But something was off that night. Marcus could feel it in his bones, the tension in the air, the unfamiliar faces in expensive suits, and the hushed conversations that stopped when he walked by. The normally bustling hotel was now filled with a strange and eerie quiet. What Marcus didn't know was that this would be the night he would face a moral dilemma that would test his loyalty, his duty, and his understanding of right and wrong. For Marcus Williams, guarding Elvis Presley was never just a job. It was an honor, a privilege that he held close to his heart. As a young boy, Marcus had watched his mother tirelessly struggle to make ends meet. He knew the weight of hard work, sacrifice, and the quiet resilience it took to keep a family together. In Elvis, he saw not just a star but a man who understood struggle, the same man who, despite his massive fame and fortune, took the time to speak to the security team, remembering their names and asking about their families. In a world where the rich and famous often ignored the people who made their lives easier, Elvis's kindness had made a lasting impact on Marcus. But as he stood in the hotel's dimly lit corridors, something felt different that night. His instincts, honed by 20 years of experience, were screaming at him. The sudden appearance of unfamiliar faces, the hushed tones of conversations between hotel management, and the uneasy tension in the air were warning signs. Marcus knew something was about to go terribly wrong. He walked through the hotel's back halls, checking exits and making sure everything was secure, but his mind kept returning to the strange directive from his supervisor, Tony Castellano. Marcus had never trusted Castellano. There was something about the man's smarmy smile and his quick shifts in loyalty that didn't sit right with him. The sudden change in security protocol felt out of place. Why were they bringing in special security for the night's show? Elvis had never needed special security. The regular team had always been more than enough. As Marcus walked past the rows of dressing rooms, he couldn't shake the feeling that the decision to have him patrol the parking garage instead of overseeing the performance area was more than just a managerial oversight. The unease settled deep within him as he noticed the unfamiliar men in expensive suits. Their faces were hard, their movements deliberate. Something was wrong, but Marcus had no concrete proof, only gut-wrenching intuition. Yet, despite the doubt and uncertainty gnawing at him, Marcus knew one thing for certain. His loyalty to Elvis Presley meant everything to him. It wasn't just about protecting a famous man. It was about standing up for what was right, no matter the personal cost. As the minutes ticked by, Marcus's sense of duty took over. He could feel the weight of his decision already, but the choice was clear: he had to protect Elvis, no matter the cost. The pressure was mounting. The night's performance was approaching, and Marcus could feel his anxiety creeping up with every step he took. The usual buzz of excitement that filled the hotel was replaced with a strange, tense energy. As he walked past the crowd of fans gathering, all eagerly waiting for Elvis's grand entrance, his eyes scanned the crowd, his mind constantly processing the patterns of movement, the subtle shifts in energy that only someone with years of experience could notice. At 9 p.m., just 15 minutes before Elvis was scheduled to go on stage, Marcus's gut tightened as he watched three men in expensive suits approach Elvis's dressing room. Their movements were too coordinated, too smooth. They were not here to admire the star. They were here to send a message. Marcus had been trained to read the subtle cues of threat, and everything about these men screamed danger. His heart raced as he recognized the lead man, Vincent "Vinny" Torino, a known associate of organized crime families who had a reputation for dealing with entertainers who didn't play by the rules. The realization hit him like a punch in the gut. Someone was trying to intimidate Elvis, or worse, send a clear message that would have catastrophic consequences. As the men approached the dressing room, their hands subtly moved toward the inside of their jackets, as if readying weapons. Marcus's instincts flared, and everything he had ever learned in his 2 decades of security work told him that he had to act immediately. But he couldn't just charge in. He couldn't confront them head-on without tipping them off. He had to think quickly and carefully. There was no room for mistakes. His mind raced. He had been ordered to stay in the parking garage, away from the action. But this wasn't just a simple breach of protocol. It was a matter of life and death. If Marcus followed orders, there was no telling what could happen to Elvis. The fear, the weight of the responsibility threatened to crush him. But Marcus stood tall, his years of experience giving him the clarity he needed. Without a second thought, he made a decision that would change his life forever. Instead of heading toward the parking garage, he slipped into a hidden alcove near Elvis's dressing room, close enough to intervene but out of sight. He knew he had no authority to act on his own, but his instincts screamed that he was the only one who could protect the king. There were no guarantees, no backup, just his sheer will and dedication to doing the right thing. As the minutes passed, Marcus watched the three men in suits make their way closer, their intent clear. His eyes narrowed as he read their body language. They were here to harm, to intimidate, to take control of the situation in a way that Marcus couldn't allow. The tension in the air felt suffocating, but Marcus didn't waver. He focused on the men as they closed in, every detail in his mind, ready to make his move. The moment of truth had arrived. The seconds stretched out, each one heavier than the last. Elvis was moments away from stepping out of his dressing room, and Marcus knew that if he didn't act now, the threat could become a reality. His eyes locked on the trio of men in suits, their movements deliberate and calculated. The lead man, Vinny Torino, had his hand half inside his jacket, the bulge suggesting a concealed weapon. Marcus's heart pounded in his chest as he silently prepared for the worst. As Elvis stepped out of the dressing room, laughing and joking with his backup singers, completely unaware of the looming danger, Marcus knew this was the critical moment. He had no more time to observe. He had to act. "Mr. Presley," Marcus called out, his voice firm but urgent, cutting through the tense silence of the hallway. The moment Elvis heard his name, he turned, surprise flashing across his face. But there was no time for confusion. Marcus's eyes were locked on the men in suits, who had now shifted their positions, hands inching toward their weapons. The threat was no longer a theory, it was real. "Elvis, you need to get back to your dressing room now," Marcus said, his voice steady though the adrenaline was coursing through him. Elvis, ever the professional, trusted Marcus completely. Without hesitation, he stepped back toward his dressing room, his expression changing from casual ease to focused concern. He understood that Marcus wasn't just doing his job, he was protecting him from something far worse than just a security breach. The three men froze. Their plan had been exposed and they realized their moment of surprise had slipped away. With a subtle gesture from Torino, the men melted into the crowd of backstage staff, but not without giving Marcus one last cold stare. The message was clear. They wouldn't forget what had just happened. But Marcus's relief was short-lived. From behind him he heard the voice of Tony Castellano, his supervisor, booming through the hallway. "What the hell are you doing, Williams?" Castellano shouted, his anger palpable. Marcus didn't flinch. "There's a security situation. Mr. Presley needs to get back to his room," he replied, his voice unwavering. Castellano sits, face turned red with fury. "I told you to stay in the parking garage," he shouted. "Mr. Presley needs to get back to his room now." Marcus stood his ground. "ISEP made my decision. This situation is bigger than orders." The tension was thick, but Marcus's decision was already made. He had acted with honor, with integrity, and now he had to face the consequences. "Elvis, you need to go back," Marcus urged. But as Elvis started to move back, he paused, sensing the growing conflict. He looked between Marcus and Castellano. Without a word, he followed Marcus's lead, stepping back into his dressing room. Castellano, visibly shaken, turned to Marcus. "You made a huge mistake, Williams. You set fired, effective immediately." Elvis, who had been listening from the door, stepped forward. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of an unspoken understanding. "Mr. Castellano, Marcus was doing his job. If he felt there was a threat, then I stand by him." Castellano tried to interject, but Elvis wouldn't stop to let him. "No, you stood wrong. Marcus was doing more than just his job. He was doing what needed to be done." Elvis turned to Marcus, his eyes softening. "I once forget this. You protected me when I needed it the most." Marcus silently handed over his security badge and radio to Castellano, his heart heavy with the knowledge that he had done the right thing. Yet the price of that decision had come at a high personal cost. After that fateful night in Las Vegas, the cost of Marcus's decision became painfully clear. He had acted on instinct and loyalty, choosing to protect Elvis Presley despite the consequences. But as he walked away from the International Hotel that evening, there was no regret, just a quiet sense of pride. Marcus had done the right thing, but that didn't make the aftermath any easier to bear. For the next 6 months, Marcus struggled to find steady work. His name had been tarnished in security circles. Tony Castellano, desperate to protect his own reputation, had spun the story of Marcus's actions to make him seem like an unreliable and insubordinate employee. It was a harsh reality for Marcus, who had always prided himself on his integrity and work ethic. During this time, Marcus took whatever jobs he could find, temporary warehouse positions, construction work, anything to support his wife, Maria, and their daughter, Sophia. Maria, always supportive, worked extra shifts at the diner, while Sophia, only 2 years away from college, took a part-time job at a local grocery store to help pay the bills. Despite the financial strain, they never regretted Marcus's decision. They understood that, for him, it wasn't just about keeping a job, it was about standing by what he believed was right. Meanwhile, the truth about the night at the hotel slowly began to surface. Months later, federal agents arrested Vinnie Torino, the man Marcus had recognized as part of the threat against Elvis. Torino was involved in organized crime, and the investigation revealed that he had planned to intimidate Elvis for refusing to perform at mob-controlled venues. The FBI also discovered that Torino had infiltrated the hotel's security that night, using it as a way to carry out his threat without being detected. When Elvis found out what had happened, he was furious, not because of the threat to his own safety, but because of what Marcus had sacrificed to protect him. Elvis didn't hesitate. He launched an investigation into the events of that night, speaking with other hotel staff and gathering the truth. It became clear that Marcus had acted with integrity, and Elvis knew he had to make it right. In a heartfelt gesture, Elvis offered Marcus a new position, head of his personal security team, with a salary far higher than what he had been earning at the hotel. But Elvis didn't stop there. He used his influence to expose the corruption within the hotel's security department and called for an overhaul of the procedures that had led to Marcus's firing. Marcus's career in security flourished after that, and he became a sought-after consultant and speaker. His story of integrity and sacrifice became well known in the security industry, inspiring others to act with the same moral courage that he had demonstrated that night. While there was no formal security training institute created, Marcus's influence remained strong. He continued to advocate for ethical behavior in security and law enforcement, mentoring those who shared his values. When Elvis passed away in 1977, Marcus was there. He was one of the pallbearers at the funeral, a final act of loyalty to the man who had recognized his sacrifice and given him a second chance. On a bright, clear March morning in 1973, Marcus Williams was working a construction job downtown, struggling to make ends meet, when an unexpected visitor arrived, Elvis Presley himself, dressed casually but with an unmistakable presence. Elvis stepped out of a black Cadillac and approached Marcus, who stood frozen, unsure of what to expect. Elvis's voice was thick with emotion as he spoke. "I know what you've been through, Marcus. I know what you sacrificed that night. I will never forget it." Marcus had spent months wondering if Elvis had even known he was gone, let alone understood the circumstances of his departure. But in that moment, all of his doubts were washed away. Elvis wasn't just a superstar. He was a man of integrity, a man who understood the true cost of loyalty. "You were doing much more than your job," Elvis continued. "You were willing to lose everything to protect me, and I won't let you continue to suffer for that." Elvis didn't stop there. He ensured that Marcus was immediately hired as the head of his personal security team, with a salary far higher than what he had been earning at the hotel. But more importantly, Elvis used his influence to expose the corruption that had led to Marcus's firing and pushed for a complete overhaul of the hotel's security protocols. Elvis's gesture didn't end with a job offer. It became a lasting legacy. Elvis established the Marcus Williams Security Training Institute, a program dedicated to teaching security professionals the importance of recognizing real threats while maintaining the highest ethical standards. Under Marcus's leadership, the institute became the premier training ground for security in the entertainment industry. It trained security teams who prioritized safety over politics and integrity over convenience, creating a ripple effect that would reverberate throughout the industry for years to come. The partnership between Marcus and Elvis grew from professional to deeply personal, a bond based on mutual respect, loyalty, and an unwavering commitment to doing the right thing. When Elvis passed away in 1977, Marcus was there by his side, carrying his casket as one of his closest friends. The legacy of that night, and of the lesson Marcus and Elvis had learned, was further immortalized by the Marcus Williams Security Training Institute. The motto inscribed above its door reads, "Integrity above all, a testament to the value of loyalty, honor, and standing up for what is right, even when the world seems to demand otherwise." In 2003, Marcus was recognized with a Civilian Service Award by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, an acknowledgement not only for protecting Elvis, but for helping expose organized crime within the entertainment industry. As Marcus himself put it, "I didn't do anything heroic that night. I just did what I knew was right." The real hero was Elvis Presley, who recognized and rewarded Marcus's sacrifice, and through his leadership, ensured that the values of integrity and loyalty would continue to inspire future generations. Elvis's story, and Marcus's unwavering commitment to doing what was right, proves that true leadership means standing by those who make sacrifices for others, and that integrity will always be rewarded, even if the world doesn't recognize it right away. So I leave you with this question. Have you ever had a moment when something you heard or saw changed your perspective on life? How has empathy or integrity shaped the way you interact with others? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and reflect on how you can incorporate these values into your own journey. If Marcus's story moved you, don't forget to share this video and subscribe to our channel, and always remember, doing the right thing no matter the cost is always worth it.